So grateful to be here and very happy to discuss these incredibly important and hard to talk about topics. He has an incredible backbone and staggering moral fiber. Howie is totally committed, completely ethical, totally admirable. No pressure if you can hear this, but honestly, Howie's a hero to me.
John, you joined us before, and it was a pretty incredible kind of testimony you gave, and you just devoted your life to advocacy for child trafficking, and even 9/11 truth. Maybe you could explain to us, in the last decade, what do you think the most challenging parts of coming alive on some of these issues have been?
Probably the hardest thing, and it continues, is just realizing that pretty much everything that I was told and taught since I was in grade school is probably not true. Good evening and welcome to the Traffic Report. Howie, how are you?
Doing well, John. How are you?
A little tired, but okay. You want to know what the most challenging part of the preparation for this week's show was?
Realizing that I didn't know a lot about Scientology. No,
it was having to look at Ron Hubbard's teeth.
No. Well, should I tell him my comparison? What I said?
Yeah, I thought it was very very telling.
Yeah, and anybody can go pull up the pictures because. But if you look at a side by side, you have to get them smiling. There's there aren't too many of them.
Yes.
But you go in images and you get L. Ron Hubbard smiling, and you put him right next to Jerry Sandusky. It is like one of those separated at birth kind of things. I mean, Jerry Sandusky just has the creepiest smile. And if you actually go on YouTube and look for a Jerry Sandusky interview, there's not too many of them, but there's one where it's just kind of like him, and I think he's talking about the second mile, and he laughs a couple times, and I'm telling you, it's like bone-chilling creepy. And but I found it interesting because when the whole Jerry Sandusky thing came out, I was like, going back because I was like, I don't really, I know his face and stuff. I mean, I went to Penn State. I mean, I know who the guy, I know of the guy. And when you go to look like for interviews with him, there are very, very few. And for like the defensive coordinator of Penn State for like 30 something years, you would think there would be tons and tons of clips, but there's just not. So I don't know why that is. Maybe he was camera shy, but L. Ron Hubbard, Jerry Sandusky, separated at birth.
Yeah. Sick brothers. Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, just the guy's face, I can't even stand to look at it. And after tonight's show, the listeners will have, if they don't know about him, a little better idea why I'm saying that. But we always, and it's a sewer. I mean, it's literally a sewer from day one. But we'll get into that. We always start with some current stuff that's going on. I know you wanted to talk about what's going on in Texas.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to ignore, and there's a lot of for me there's a lot of positivity being put out on the across mainstream media, and they're bashing Trump a little bit along the way. They're throwing some stuff in, and do you think I was over at my parents' house today, and they had CNN on all day, and I had it on, and the anchor was asking the guest, Trump's going, he's saying everything's going well. They were like, do you think he understands the magnitude of that they're not out of the woods yet? I was like, no CNN anchor. You're the only one that understands that. They just no, he don't they don't realize that there's, 50 inches of water on the ground still. But,
it's cutting into their Russian narrative time. I know they can't be too happy about that.
Yeah, well, they've been pushing it a little bit too, but I mean, it's been more about people showing up at the shelters and neighbor helping neighbor and a lot of feel good stories. But I'm not an expert on the subject, but I mean, there's a lot of dead people in Houston right now that for some reason they're kind of glossing over. They have no idea. They have absolutely no idea who got in, who got out. And, I watched, I believed, when the mayor, they kept asking, I think his name's Sylvester Turner, do you regret not doing an evacuation? And he said, no, because we didn't know where the storm was going to hit and we'd have people on the roads and everything.
Really?
But
really?
Well,
they didn't know where it was going to hit?
Well, they didn't. Well, exactly. And if you had all these, if you had millions of people trying to leave at once and you have people stuck on the roads, and I was like, okay, that kind of makes sense. But what I can't understand is why they would know, because they were calling, they said this has potential to be, as big as it is. Why wouldn't you take the, initiative to get the most vulnerable to shelters, where they'd be safe. So, evacuate the nursing homes and, the sick, elderly.
I get it, and I get it, Howie. But the big one of the well-kept secrets is that anything like that happens, even on it, because we went through hurricanes in Florida and a lot at the fire department, and the big secret is the infrastructure is not there to do much of anything other than kind of plug holes in a dam when it all goes bad. I mean, you can't. Sure. You just, people want to think, every time they bitch about their property taxes and, when it comes to staffing, fire departments adequately, they get it from both sides. I mean, the residents really don't care until their house is on fire. They care about their taxes, and the county or the government people, they care about getting reelected. And I mean, I fought that battle for 2 decades, a little longer. And and then you take a city. I mean, we were in a smaller city, a very small city, but we had tremendous problems. Every time a hurricane would come in, we'd bring everybody that we had in. The county would bring everybody that they had in, and there was just a limited amount of what you could do. And I'm sure in Houston that must have been, I'm not sure if they, if that guy would have given that order. If there, where do you take them? Where do you?
Well, I'm saying get them out first. Just take them, get them to these, evacuation shelters just in case. Come, get them out, and because what I'm seeing is, there's a lot of, just like in America, there's a lot of old people, there's a lot of sick people, and there's a lot of really obese people. And I'm not picking on obese people right now, but they can't, there's people that can't walk a city block. So trying to rescue these people is a major challenge. So get some of them out of the way. So, because just getting them from the front door through the water up into a boat, and all this stuff, I've just seen a lot of those that I was just like, I feel like they should have done something.
Yeah.
But
yeah, and I don't disagree with you, but the problem is, even, I mean, the shelters are inadequate, the staffing is inadequate.
Right. Well, that's right. Nobody wants to spend money. No. And we're gonna, we're gonna be talking about Scientology and
God.
false religions, but it popped out that Joel Osteen wouldn't open up his doors to his mega church. And I don't know if people realize his church is the former arena for the Houston Rockets basketball team. It used to be called the Summit, and then it became obsolete. They built a new arena, and he bought the basketball arena and turned it into a 16,000 seat church. So,
I think the problem there is that's for paying customers only.
Yeah, one of the best. Yeah, one of the best tweets is something about like it's not for high tide. It's not for high tide. It's for high tithe. They pronounce it the tithe.
I know he got literally eviscerated on Twitter, and actually some of the people on our Twitter line and Twitter feed were got blocked, for giving him. And
my friend Bailey, she just tweeted out he got blocked. But he was blocked. People are like, I just got blocked from Joel Osteen. It's like, folks, by the way, Joel Osteen's not sitting on his Twitter account. I'm sure he's got somebody working his Twitter account and just blocking it.
Yeah, he's vacationing in the Cayman Islands right now, and
he was asking for money though.
Yeah,
he was asking for money.
Yeah, that always comes with the con people. There's no human misery or disaster that they will fail to exploit.
Well, and I don't trust anything, including charities and nonprofits. And everyone's like, donate to the Red Cross, donate to the Red Cross, donate to the Red Cross. And in my travels, there was an article that the Red Cross could not account for $500 million that was supposed to go to Haiti.
Haiti.
Maybe I can. Maybe we can tweet out this article.
It's probably in a Clinton Foundation bank account, I would bet, somewhere.
A special report, the American Red Cross. This is from June 3rd, 2015. In search of the Red Cross's $500 million in Haiti relief. Maybe it's an accounting error, and they were supposed, once again, they were supposed to build all these everybody was supposed to build houses. Everybody was supposed to build houses. And I think they built like one house. But how that stuff just gets completely, whitewashed,
Well, there's
500
on that and you're probably too young to remember this, but the show Monty Python's Flying Circus, they're interviewing a government minister on there, and he says to him, your party promised to build 36 billion houses in the previous 3 years. You've in fact only built 5. Are you disappointed with that? And the guy's like, no, and goes on to give an explanation.
It's like, was it 36 million billion or
36 million billion? Yeah, but they only built 5.
Yeah, like Monty Python was before my time, but I used to catch reruns. Monty Python was always hit or miss for me. Sometimes it would just absolutely crack me up, and sometimes I was like, all right, that's not fun.
Yeah, it's tough. I grew up there, so I understood a lot more than probably the average person that's never been there. So I got, but they were brutal on the politicians. I mean, they were exposing the pedophilia, with satire. I mean, they were talking about cabinet ministers, with young boys.
Oh, really?
And judges. Oh yeah. Yeah, everybody got their turn.
Oh, I'm sure they knew Jimmy Savile very well, and that's right around the time that Edward Heath was prime minister. So yes. I guess it was just like everybody knew.
Yeah, there's some really vicious satire on that show about Edward Heath, But
is there? Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I definitely would not have picked up on that, but it's what else is going on?
Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about what's going on with the Awan, whatever the fuck you want to call them, brothers. spies.
I started watching the interview.
Yeah, Jason Goodman did Andre Taggart. If they put Andre on wrapping these idiots up, they'd all be behind bars in a week. You know, the guy knows exactly what's going on, exactly what needs to be done, and he wanted no part of this. I mean, he's just a guy caught in a situation.
And who is he exactly?
He was the tenant of Imran.
Whoa. He was talking to, but he was in the military, right?
Yeah. He was in the Marine Corps. He was an avionics technician and just a really sharp guy. And Jason did a really good interview on him. But he he's just asked, just do the right thing. You know, it's like obviously, there's been a crime committed. He did the right. He called. He got the Naval Criminal Investigative Service out there. And I think the D.C. police. He turned over the evidence. He gave them a complete statement. And gee whiz, they're being charged with bank fraud, which has nothing to do with And even he's not like a real political guy or somebody that follows spy rings or anything, but it was obvious to him that these guys were involved with some very, screwed up, dealings with Congress. And he asked, he's asking all these common sense questions. How do guys that really, barely have visas, get these high paying, congressional jobs when there's veterans like himself who are beating the bushes to try to get a job as an electrician? How does that happen? And
sure.
Really, you should watch that. Just watch. Anybody that's listening, go over to Crowdsource the Truth and watch the Andre Taggart interview. And I mean, it's just it's obvious as the nose on your face. Whether anything gets done about it, it's not so obvious. There's a hearing on Friday. Jason's going to be there, and I think George Webb's going to be there. And they're trying to get it properly investigated, but Debbie Wasserman Schultz's brother-in-law or brother or relative, whoever the hell it is, who's the D.C. U.S. attorney, has already said the A1 case is a nothing burger. and how he would know that, because he's not assigned to it, is a mystery. So
he did comment on it?
Oh, yeah. That's what he called it, a nothing burger. The guy's got...
Oh, that's his quote. Oh, he quoted that?
Oh yeah, that's what he said. But the problem
he must run with Van Jones.
Yeah. Well, the problem is he's not supposed to know anything about it. He's not prosecuting the case. That information should only be known by the one that's prosecuting it, who according.
And what prosecutor would come out and speak on a case that he's not even working on?
Yeah, a crooked one. A crooked one.
Did you see her interview? Did you see Debbie Wasserman Schultz be interviewed this week?
No.
Oh,
I can't even look at her, dude. I can't even look at a picture of her.
Come on, I tweeted it at you, but yeah, I don't know, what is it? The Sentinel, is that the Orlando Sentinel or the Sentinel Sun-Times? I think it's called. They had a few Florida newspapers in front of her. And she gave a bunch of canned answers. But, it's one thing when you watch Debbie Wasserman Schultz speak, and when she's lying, I mean, she gives I'm not an expert on it, obviously, but she gives the absolute tells. She blinks like crazy, dude. As soon as when she starts getting in the lying mode, I'm not, the eyes are going, and you have to see the interview. But it was really interesting because I was trying to find the full interview, and the way each newspaper was doing it, they were given bits and pieces of it, and then cutting away, talking over it, then going back to her. I was like, just let it run like a press conference. Yeah, let the question be asked and let her answer it, and then the next question. And they just kept it was very edited, and I was like, I was looking on YouTube for the entire thing. I couldn't find it. It was pretty frustrating.
Yeah, and on the same note, the DNC lawsuit, this judge, Zlock, whoever he is, has all these great comments during the initial portion of that case, where the DNC are subverting democracy and blah, 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 blah. And then he dismisses the case on a technicality. So a shout out to Elizabeth. I sent her my tinfoil hat picture just to show a little support. There is recourse for them in that case, and they are pursuing it. It's not over, but how incredibly disappointing to have your life at stake. These people have been threatened by a phone call from Wasserman Schultz office with a voice changer, and they find out that there's been a U.S. attorney and two or three other attorneys murdered in that jurisdiction, and they find out that the case has been dismissed. I mean, the corruption is just.
Well, I mean, listen, did anybody? I mean, but does it surprise you that it was just thrown out on a quote unquote technicality? I mean, are they really going to let a lawsuit go through? I mean, from everything that we've seen, are they really going to allow this?
Well, and we'll talk about that tonight, because this report, and we tweeted this FBI report that was done on Scientology, and a real investigation with honest agents that was just shelved in 2010. I'm assuming by Eric Holder. So yeah, this corruption, and again, I hold out hope from my old friend Field McConnell that tells me there's big things happening by the end of September, and it's going to take. I mean, they're going to have to arrest these people on whatever grounds they can try. I would arrest them under the Patriot Act as being enemy combatants. Because
but the whole judge system. I mean, the rumor is that judges are the most corrupted people of them all. And I mean, they hold so much power because all I have to do is bang that gavel and say dismissed, and it's over. I mean, there's no, obviously there's appeals courts and everything, but I mean,
ask Tim Hotham,
exactly.
Ask Lori Handrahan. Absolutely. I mean, the layers of corruption in this country are just they're beyond belief, and it's going to take a swift, severe intervention by the legal authority, and at this time that could be the military, because these people are guilty of treason, and they put the Patriot Act in place. They sowed the seeds for their own demise. So legally, under our laws, they could be designated and arrested and barely even get a trial. Which would be fine with me, because we pretty much know they're guilty already, but. And the only time I ever want to see Wasserman Schultz ever again is at her sentencing.
Yeah, she's
sorry, Howie. Sorry, I didn't click your link.
Yeah, I was going to add. I mean, I think one avenue to explore, like, can somebody like find out like Imran Awan's credentials in the first place? Like, does he have an education? Did all his brothers and his wives and whatever,
there's so many of them, and I think
what I'm saying, right? I mean, just find their, because even if they were, I would think if they went to like the University of Pakistan, like, I don't think that's enough to like get, like, I don't think that's like an accredited United States where they could start working for, a politician. It just seems so odd. So I don't know where they went to school. I don't know if somebody
and we know there's no basis in that. Yeah, they must have had some knowledge because they were operating equipment, but we know that they were brought in there because they were.
But I'm saying, but if they didn't have the credentials in the first place, that would just raise another red flag. That's all I'm saying.
No.
I know what they are, but it's like, well, wait a second. Let's say, for example, they don't even have a college degree. Well, then I'm sure it's a prerequisite to work, in IT, on Capitol Hill.
Well, and just look at what they're being paid. What was it, like 3 or 4 times what the average?
Sure.
So I'm hoping that the generals surrounding President Trump are serious, and I have no reason to doubt my old friend Field McConnell, one of my mentors, that they're going to take decisive action soon. And I think that's the only way this is going to. It's either going to be that or millions of people, and this is going to be my segue, because there's a lady who I've been keeping track
Well,
of
before you segue, I got to plug. So
okay,
just
go ahead.
No, you can. Oh, were you going to segue right in now, or?
Well, yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. No, I just wanted to say the Philadelphia Inquirer did a story on Antifa, and the reporter called me last week, and she threw my story. She threw a little bit of me, and so it was on the front. It was, unfortunately Houston took major precedent over, but it was still on the front page of the Inquirer story on Philadelphia Antifa and Antifa in general. So, but every time somebody talks about me in a paper, when I got after this happened and got on the news. Oh, and he also was involved in the debunked Pizzagate conspiracy, and I was like, wait a second, we didn't even mention Pizzagate in the interview, but it's it's always been debunked.
You're a according to reliable sources, that fucking guy today. I blew him up and then I got rid of him when I got bored. But it's just ridiculous.
I was begging. I one of those guys. I was begging him to debate me on Skype. I said, just debate me on Skype. That's all. And he's like,
those clowns you're on with, they did a hell of a job. They're telling you, well, you can't use that logic, and they're using the exact same logic to negate your argument.
When I went on that podcast on Saturday, and that was out of chance. But I mean, they're basically saying, because they're just like using these like legal techniques of, yes, the case is circumstantial. Do I know James Alefantis and have I seen them with having sex with raping children? No, I haven't. But I've seen A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, blah, 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 blah. And you haven't seen any of it. So you're telling me that the whole thing is, half-baked, conspiracy. Like, stop saying that. Like, you don't even, I mean, before I got on this podcast on Saturday, like, they're talking to, the owner of some restaurant, Comet, I forget the name. I was like, and I called right in and I was like, guys, you're saying it's debunked. You don't even know James Alefantis' name, or the name of the restaurant is Comet Ping Pong. You don't even know that. Like, but you know that this thing has been debunked. Like, come on, man, stop.
They're just a cross section of the sleeping, half-brained American public. There's just enough, and they use the exact. They're telling you, well, you can't do that. You can't use that kind of logic. And then when you're asking them the same question, they're using the exact same logic to prove their argument. It was ridiculous. I mean, it was like,
right, they're saying, right,
it was like you were talking to 3-year-olds.
Right. They can dismiss it without the evidence. Yeah. Like, they haven't proven that it's not real. Okay.
Any knowledge of it. They barely had any knowledge of it at all.
But I think towards as it went, after I calmed down a little bit, as we got talking, because so much of the evidence, it's visual, and of course I didn't get into like absolutely everything, but it's like, guys, just take a look at the pictures and then look at the comments on the pictures, and then it's like, all right, 1 picture, it could be a joke. 2 pictures, bad taste. 3 pictures, guy's creepy. 5, 6, 7, like, whoa. All right. Like, they're doing this all the time. Like, wait a second.
Yeah. And nobody remembers the talk about the Podesta emails. What about Julian Assange referring to 800 child porn images, on Podesta's account or computer? I mean, nobody remembers that. That tweet gets deleted off of Twitter. I was reading his account the other day, and that
I don't even know about that.
Oh yeah. Well, I'll get you some info on that. We're gonna have to move along, because I'm gonna get stoned from the people that want to hear this Scientology sewer. So we'll get to all that.
Oh yeah, we're already at a half hour. I didn't even realize.
Yeah. It's easy when you start talking about corruption. we could fill hours. And
you're not going to bash the best actor in the world, Tom Cruise, tonight, are you?
I would never. I do that personally on Twitter.
Oh, okay.
And he hasn't blocked me yet.
Don't be bashing my Tommy.
Yeah. What was his name? What was his in the Top Gun? I can't even remember.
I don't remember. I never saw Top Gun.
Yeah, that's it. He's a forgettable actor, Tom Cruise. But at any rate, before, and I'm just about to get into this, and I want to let the audience know, and Tim, if he's listening, that we're going to do a marathon. We had a tremendous response to both of his shows. He's told, I think, maybe 5% of the whole story. And soon we're going to have a marathon traffic report. It's going to be either on YouTube Live or possibly Periscope. It's going to be on some interactive medium, so the audience can ask questions and we can, have some back and forth. We're going to try to get some of the other people like Crowdsource the Truth to be involved in Skype in, and some of our other guests. I'd like Becky and V to come in and be able to ask some questions, and really anybody that was serious and really wanted to could Skype in. But we'll it's coming, and I just want people to know about that. So let's and I'm avoiding this. I don't want to get into this sewer, but I'm going to have to dive in and just hold my nose. And I've known this for a long time. I started when some of my best exposure was a documentary called Going Clear that's on HBO, and if you haven't seen it, you need to see it. Alex Gibney produced that, and it was probably the start of the downfall of Scientology. We've got some great links. Another guy, Tony Ortega, who's a journalist and who has exposed Scientology for years and years. Very credible, great guy. He's links to his website. You can find Tony Ortega. Just look him up on Twitter. He's got. We're going to be posting. Hopefully, we're having trouble getting our links into our YouTube, but we will have. I'll probably post that link tonight for Tony Ortega because he has just done amazing investigative work on Scientology. But at any rate, it started for me, as far as awareness with Going Clear, and Leah Remini, who's another favorite person of mine. I've loved her since I think we were talking about that King of Queens, and I really wasn't aware, until the show came out, that how she was involved in Scientology and how it all went down. But that show, and I would recommend it to everybody, Scientology in the Aftermath. The show we're going to talk about tonight, and actually when this show first came out, I was starting to, think about Scientology and child abuse and pedophilia, and I just knew. I knew with the research I've done, I knew that's going on in that organization. It has to be. And I wrote the show, and I was talking to one of the producers of the show, and just gave them some heads up, and made myself available as a resource. And I think for the first season, they really, that's not something that they could get into, right off the bat, because they were just getting people to come forward, and they were getting fought on every side, by the lawyers for Scientology. And we'll see, they've got some very powerful protectors in this country, including the Attorney General of the United States. Apparently, I think it was Eric Holder at the time, but we're going to talk about that FBI investigation. But at any rate, that show is fantastic, and they are now starting to rip the layers of the onion off. And their first show, which is called Thetans Inside Little Bodies, was their premiere episode. And it, again, tragic. I knew it. I was waiting for it. And then watching it and seeing the pain in these families and on the survivors' faces was, it's something, everybody needs to see. We need to see that this is going on. But please go to A&E, however you can get it, and watch that episode. I'm sure they're going to get into more of the child rape culture of Scientology, because it's totally built for that. It's we're going to get into a little bit of the history of the freak L. Ron Hubbard, that's the brainchild of this abortion, that they call a religion. But Leah Remini has done incredible work. Mike Render, Tony Ortega. There's tons of more people that I follow on Twitter that have done great work with this. But please, and it's on the audience, and we're asking our audience, because we're getting a little crowdsourced type of community going here and Facebook. And what we need to know, and what everybody that's trying to take this down needs to know, they need survivors to come forward. Anybody that has had a child abuse, child rape experience with Scientology, please come forward, whether it's to a police officer, whether it's to this show, whether it's to Leah Remini, Tony Ortega. We need you to come forward. This is starting to gain traction. We had two marvelous, brave survivors. It reminded me of Becky and V, that told their story on this A&E program, Scientology in the Aftermath, and the ball is rolling on these scumbags, and we need everybody that we can to come. And I understand we may have, Howie, somebody that's kind of been involved in that.
Yeah, I met a Scientologist on Twitter, a former Scientologist, about 6 months ago. And she just told me a story of a guy from the. I don't remember her exact affiliation with the church, but this guy, he was with the church, and he basically bummed around and traveled around the country and stayed at people's homes, and he was making her very uncomfortable around this woman's daughter, and she just, we were checking out his Instagram and some back, just basically checking him out. And so she was going to come on and, basically tell that story again. Couldn't hook up with her. So it might be Thursday or some other time, but it was an interesting story.
Well, I look forward to that. And go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, it sounds strange. Like, why would this guy come and stay? But apparently that's what he did. Because he was a Scientologist and he was fairly well respected in the church. People would just let guy come and stay at their house. I don't know what he was doing there. I don't remember. She could probably tell that better.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I look forward to that. And the same goes. There's a couple of people I was running into on our Twitter line, and that's one of the most hopeful things of what we're doing is we're getting survivors surface to at least acknowledge that they are survivors, and we will support them in any way we can. We have other survivors that have been on the show and that can be a resource. We have a lot of information, and we definitely can help them in any way, whether it's to put them in touch with law enforcement, which that would be the thing I would like to do most, and because the statute of limitations does not run out on this stuff, and it's been very encouraging. And so we're talking about Scientology tonight, but any survivor that's listening to this and that needs help and needs some assistance and either coming forward or support or whatever, that's what we're here for. That's why we're doing this. So please
Sure.
Don't hesitate to contact us.
But unfortunately, as difficult as it seems for survivors to come out, for a multitude of reasons, to come out and say something happened, to go up against it, the Church of Scientology, the little that I've researched on them, they will attack. They will fight back. They will intimidate. They will do everything. They're disgusting. They're just absolutely disgusting. So having survivors come out and talk against, just someone that's come out and say anything negative against, the church, they get persecuted pretty bad, and then come out and say.
And I did notice it's kind of stopped, but I got kicked off Skype like 4 times when we were talking about this FBI investigation, and those are and what I would like people to do and what we're going to post, because it's most telling. It is. And Tony Ortega was able to obtain a copy of this with some difficulty, but it's an official human trafficking investigation that was done against the Church of Scientology. Started in 2009. I think it ran through at least 2010. If you read it, it's just it makes it obvious that the agents they have an open and shut case for human trafficking. It violates all the slave labor, aspects of the human trafficking laws, and it's a federal case, and it's open and shut with the information that's just in this report. But also in that report, they have complainants coming forward that are talking about Scientology upper management and management having sex with underage kids. So there it is. There's your child rape. You had the 2 women on Leah's program on the first episode. Now you've got an FBI report, and this is all on the record. And these agents that were doing this report were honest. I mean, it was their opinion, and they put that in the report that the people that they were going to interview would obviously indictments would follow, their testimony. And none of which follows. So that tells you right there, not only in their dealings in getting exempt status, which they were helped by politicians and high-level politicians, but apparently whoever was Attorney General, I think it was Holder in 2009, 2010, got this squashed. Or knew about it being squashed. I don't think a senator could do that. I mean, he might call the Attorney General, but this whole investigation was shelved. And just like it's like going back to the Finders in '87. I hate to say, but it's always like that. It's like you've got honest cops, honest FBI guys. They go out, they do this investigation, they document the evidence, and the case goes nowhere. So. I'm posting that link. Please read it, and please start making some noise about this. Scientology is on Twitter. Maybe you should tell them how you feel about, what they're doing to children. Not only are they enslaving them, and they do this through schools. And I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, and I'm not going to be able to be here on Thursday, but I might just have to find a way to do that just to finish this up, because there's so much. But let me just start, because I got ahead of myself with Mr. Hubbard. And it appears that the first information that I was reading about him, he was born, I think, around 1910, 1912, something like that. But they give a year, 1923, when he's in the company of, and I believe his family was involved with naval, the U.S. Navy and later naval intelligence. And it has, and this is Hubbard's own writing. He's documenting that he was being taken to Sigmund Freud lectures about sex when he was 12 years old by a captain in the United States Navy. Okay. Now, what that tells me is that there's generational sexual abuse going on, and that this guy was a victim of that. And like a lot of the victims of this go on to become perpetrators. And boy, did he design a system that was perfect for doing this for children. Because when you look at the model of Scientology, you see him, and he's a failed science fiction writer. He's a shyster, he's a BS artist. He's still not a very smart guy. And listen to who he's hanging out with. He's hanging out with Anton LaVey, who was the head of the Church of Satan at this time. Aleister Crowley he's associated with him, which he's a high level Satanist from Europe. They ran a society called the OTO, Ordo Temporo or Talus. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but it's got Masonic roots, and they were into pedophilia, child sacrifice, you name it. These were just like the worst people on earth. And then the name Michael Aquino pops up, and that is the Prince of Darkness. And just Google Michael Aquino. He's been involved in the Presidio sex case. He's been involved in just the tied to CIA mind control and child rape and kidnapping and torture off at Air Force Base. He was alleged to be involved in the Franklin case. So that, I mean, this guy and a real scumbag. I mean, and his CV for the Army, it reads like this is some kind of great person. You know, he's got all these degrees and he's written all these books about psychological warfare and blah blah blah. But this guy is just one of the biggest pieces of shit that ever walked the face of the earth, and also another Satanist, you know, in this temple of Set. And yeah, we're talking about that. There, you know, not all people that you know are involved with this are on the level of these people, but the core group definitely are. Aleister Crowley definitely was. Michael Aquino definitely was. LaVey definitely. Ron Hubbard definitely. Okay, he cruised around on a ship with like 12-year-old kids unaccompanied by their parents, and they were doing all this weird, you know, Scientology corporal punishment, and it just, I mean it. And what have we learned, Howie? What have we learned? Where do the pedophiles go? Where do you find them?
Where do you find them? Everywhere.
Yeah, but around kids. You know?
Oh.
Whether
I thought it was a trick question. Yeah, yeah.
No, not a trick question, but
yeah. Listen, you know, and we're both grown men, and you know what? I like being around kids. You know, for like an hour, maybe two, and you know, let them be on their way. You know, any grown man that wants to spend inordinate amount of time with children, there's something's not.
Yeah.
Something.
Yeah, absolutely. And where there's
when they're not their own children, you know,
yeah.
You know, like, come on, man.
And that, like, the whole thing was designed because it was designed as a mind control abuse organization. The first thing they do is separate these kids from their parents. I mean, first thing they do, what do the pedophiles do? They get the kids, they groom them, they get them away from the parents. They talk to them online, you know, and this is classic, and it's a prototype for what goes on today, how this organization was set up. And
is separated at birth. Jerry Sandusky, man, you know, like he, you know, that second mile, and they just, you know, set up a charity, and kids are always, you know, taking kids and taking them out in the field and camps and all kinds of activities, and just, you know, just prey on the susceptible ones.
So we get up through the 50s, and I guess his handlers were ready for him to do something big, because they obviously use these children and these organizations for whatever ends, you know, they need to. They're basically slaves. They set up schools pre-K through, I think it's not even 12th grade, because they never get that far, because they get a GED around the time of being 12 to 14, and then they take them into something called the Sea Org, and that's supposed to be the highest honor that a Scientologist can achieve, is being a member of the Sea Org. And what the Sea Org is basically a slave labor organization for Scientology. And they take these kids into this organization, they separate them from their kids, they threaten them, they abuse them. Even in the FBI report, they're working these kids 16-hour days. They may get fed, they may not get fed. They're living in these communal, you know, basically barracks, you know, and they're under military discipline, and it's mind control. They called it a concentration camp, and that's exactly what it is. And this is going on right now. And we had the FBI document this, and you'll read it, because I'm going to post it. And this is a copy of the investigation that was done. It's still going on. Do you think anything changed when charges weren't brought? And you've got guys like Tom Cruise and he's mind controlled, man. If you watch this nut, they're under mind control. I mean, he is crazy as, you know, a shithouse rat, for lack of a better term. And you can see that one of the worst things I've ever seen is they were giving him that crazy medal, you know, for recognition of all the work he's done for Scientology. And it's the uncomfortable long handshake and hugs he was doing with this guy. I mean, you just have to see it. Go on YouTube. There's been 1,000, you know, postings of it. And this guy is under mind control. He's obviously just not there. I mean, you look in his eyes, there's nobody home. And that's what they do. I mean, their whole sham organization, they're auditing and they're soliciting of your deepest secrets and then holding them over your head. This is classic mind control. It's classic intelligence agency type of methods and operations. I mean, it's classic, and that's who he was. Oh, that was some more of his associations. He was in the Navy himself, you know, Hubbard, and totally exaggerated his career, lied about it, and he was, you know, he was just a real wannabe, you know. But
it seems he exaggerated everything in his life, you know. The Scientologist said he studied nuclear physics at, you know, George Washington University, but that necessarily can't be confirmed. I was just real quick, you know, because he was such a prolific, you know, science fiction writer. I was wondering. I would think that maybe some clues might be hidden in his books. I don't know if anyone's.
I would be sure. Well, actually, in what I was reading, and I've just started to, and I'm going to read a lot more. And please, I encourage. There's another website. It's called Xenu.net. And if you don't know who Xenu is, according to Scientology teachings, that is their supreme being that I guess was from another planet, for one, and they were these followers of his were dropped into volcanoes 80,000 years ago, and their spirits are that's what a thetan is, you know, and that's the name of that show, Thetans and young children, and they are actually using these methods on children to eradicate, and it's not to eradicate anything, because thetans don't exist. You know, they're a figment of his warped imagination, but they're using mind control techniques and coercion on children to remove these from their body, and all it does is break down their spirit and their personalities and turn them into, you know, basically malleable victims. So, I mean, the evil of this, you just really can't imagine, and you really need to learn about, you know, all of it to really get a handle on how evil it is and how the victims are children. And it's a factory. It's a factory for manufacturing victims of sexual abuse, slavery, physical abuse, mental. It's like and a lot of these people that he was hanging out were influenced by the Nazis, and the culture is very similar to a concentration camp. Big surprise. But something else that you know he was involved with was the Office of Naval Intelligence, and they were really kind of the forerunner of the CIA, you know, with OSS, and that's where the MK Ultra program grew out of, and it sounds like he was also associated with Jim Jones. There's another, you know, guilt by association. Absolutely.
And he was definitely raping children.
Absolutely, and that's the theme. You know, that's the common thread that holds
power. Yeah. Power.
Yeah, and they've got it's a whole system to do that. That's what's so evil about it. I mean, you know, you've got the traffickers that snatch kids off the street. You know, we know what they're about, you know, but these people are, it's like they're harvesting children, you know, and they're molding them to be victims of sexual abuse, and whatever abuse they throw at them, even as adults, and the trauma that these people have suffered, even the ones that haven't been raped, the trauma that happens to the psyche is just, and this is a tax exempt religion. Bullshit. And it's time. And people like Leah Remini, Mike Renda, Tony Ortega, and the survivors that are coming forward are going to tear this fucker down, because they are on the way down. Their numbers are dwindling. There's just no way for them to recover from the exposure that they're getting. So that when that's going on, turn up the exposure. That's what I say.
Oh, yeah, but in an interview, she said they have assets of $3 billion.
Oh yeah, they got money.
I mean, they're not going anywhere anytime soon if that number is correct. Yeah. And when you have,
unless just as an outside chance, we might get an honest attorney general that can pick up that investigative work that the FBI has already done and prosecute them. Then guess what? They come down. And
John, to prosecute the between the I mean, you would need 1,000 attorney generals. I mean, what a case a case against the Church of Scientology would suck up resources. Like, it would just be unbelievable.
Well, I'm sure it wouldn't be easy, but when you've already got the evidence in an FBI investigation, I don't know how hard it would be. Yeah, it's politically unpopular. You'll be fighting their attorneys, but it's going to happen. I mean, these are the types of things that's going to have to occur.
Let me ask you this: if you're the attorney general right now, like, who's the first person you go after? Who's the first person or organization you go after? It
would be Scientology. It would be, because they're an established, clear target. A lot of these networks.
We go after them first.
Absolutely, because they're out in the open. I mean, some of these networks are so entrenched and so subterranean that that may take longer. Unless a bunch of people come forward, which may happen. But yeah, and just to show the will that you're willing to do it. Absolutely, because it's clear. It's open and shut case. They've got physical abuse. They've got mental abuse. They've got slave labor going on 24 hours a day in these places, and for years. And now they've got child rape. So yeah, that would be a good first case if it was me. That's
real quick. When I went down, when I went down the Common Ping Pong, the guy I went with, he was a former Scientologist, and he was telling me a little bit about it. He was for 7 years, and he was out on the street, just working for them, and it was a real hard life. And I don't remember everything he said about it, but he was able to just walk away one day. His feet, he was standing out in the cold, and his feet were wet, and he just said, "What am I doing?" I don't know what made him have that epiphany, but he was a Scientologist for 7 years.
Yeah. Well, anybody who gets away are among the lucky ones. We'll talk about the deaths and the suicides and everything next time. Thursday, I may not be able to be here.
We'll pick it up.
Yeah, we'll pick it up. Howie,
all right.
Loves you, baby. Thanks, everybody.